So if you're listening in here, need your help, writing to your legislators, letting them know, please pass House Bill 1923. Give this a hearing and let's pass this out of committee onto the House floor and get it funded. That's what we need. I think for over a quarter century, WSF was a victim of its own success. Underinvestment, in one word. We redirected funds away from WSF into all the other critical transportation infrastructure, bridges and highways and mega projects. And eventually that has really come home to roost. And we're now in year 6 of major service disruptions. And we take it in Kitsap, especially our neighbors in Kingston and Bremerton, but that does not compare to what folks in the San Juans are dealing with major cancellations and disruptions.
Is the Mosquito Fleet, the new Mosquito Fleet bill, is that your idea?
It is, and it's really the culmination of dozens and dozens of conversations, especially with folks that have seen the reliability of passenger only. We were very fortunate in Kitsap that as WSF stumbles and has to cut the Kingston and Bremerton routes down to one boat, that is very difficult for those ferry-served communities, as you can imagine. And yet, because we had a marine division for Kitsap Transit, our local transit authority, we were able to very quickly respond to the need, and for a fraction of the cost, get boats on the water. And then actually, because of passenger only, there's some opportunities to be agile, to be kind of think outside the box, and to move fast and move cheaply. We're able to get boats that actually kind of improve service by a lot of metrics, helping folks from Kingston actually get to downtown Seattle. And so we could reimagine a commute that folks previously couldn't even do at all. And then with Bremerton, able to get folks there quicker. And so a little bit of time savings. There are, of course, challenges with launching a new service, but quickly we ironed out a lot of that. We built a lot of kind of core competencies and expertise. And now Kitsap Transit is aiming to really be a resource as others around the state realize the opportunity of passenger-only ferries.
When did you decide to write this bill?
Here, going into session, looking at the budget, I'm a passionate, I'm a lifelong ferry rider myself. I represent thousands of folks that rely on the ferries every day, and knew that we needed to make forward progress on ferries. One of the challenges and frustrations, we have a huge budget gap, and within the world of ferries and maritime, a lot of the best ideas take years and years and years to come to fruition. We have a procurement cycle upcoming with WSF to build the new next generation of the fleet. I'm excited about that and what that can mean, but even if everything breaks our way, and procurement's a very complex business, it will be 2028 at the earliest. Likely 2029, maybe even 2030. That is too long to wait. And I know the attitude among some folks in Olympia is, hey, it's just 5 years away. We can't do that anymore. It's year 6 for us in Kitsap and Vashon and Whidbey and up in the San Juans. Our communities have taken it on the chin. And I, as a door knocker, have met hundreds of folks who have missed medical appointments, including chemotherapy, folks that have been laid off or fired from their work because they've been late or missed work, and folks that have had to change their schooling plans because they've missed midterms or finals. We've got to do better, and we've got to do better a lot faster and a lot cheaper. And so that's really the spirit behind the Mosquito Fleet Act is let's get boats in the water, and then let's deploy those in the way to really best help our neighbors across Puget Sound and across the state.
So let's talk operationally about how this would work. The CRAB, county, what is that?
County Road Administration Board.
Okay. So they would run this?
They would be the grant maker, because actually CRAB, since the 1960s, has actually done grant making for counties as they build up their roads. And in Kitsap, we're a big time beneficiary. We have a lot of rural road. They're very efficient. So they have 17 staff members at CRAB and do a lot within that portfolio, do it very efficiently. Our friends at WashDOT have their hands full. There's so much to do within that organization. We don't want to overburden them with more responsibility right now. We want them focused on the core of getting WSF back up and trying to bring costs down of construction across the state. CRAB, by contrast, has a little bit of bandwidth and I think can actually add to the portfolio efficiently and effectively.
So these things would be run very locally?
Locally.
Ports, counties, towns and cities?
Towns, cities, tribes, exploring public-private partnerships as well, with actually an incentive for multi-jurisdiction. Part of what the Mosquito Fleet once was in Puget Sound, it was really the stitching that connected different communities and created those pathways way before we had an interstate or a state highway system. That was how you got around. We can actually, I think, learn those lessons from history. And as we relearn that and stitch it together with modern technology, there's a lot of ways we can think outside the box to provide better service for our neighbors while WSF gets back on its feet.
So let's talk about San Juans.
Yeah.
What are some different scenarios? The county could propose a system and then submit that to CRAB, and then it'd just be a grant process, right?
That's right. So, just the other day, Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner Paulson were right here, right in this office, talking about the needs of San Juans. And it's very refreshing to hear commissioners who are calling a spade, here are the needs, and a willingness to try new things. Because how we got here, we've got to think a little differently to get through it, especially when you're talking about waiting another 5 or 6 years for relief. We can't do that, and our commissioners on the San Juans want to move faster. So yes, it would be a grant proposal either from the county, from municipalities, or a port authority that has this idea that we want to connect these communities and then puts together a simplified grant application process. Part of this legislation will be an emergency declaration baked in, so we can streamline as much of the rule-making and grant-making process as possible. We still need transparency and accountability. These are taxpayer dollars. We want to steward them. But as Governor Ferguson says, when you've got a crisis, you've got to act like it. This is a crisis. Our friends at WSF are working around the clock, but when you're dealing with the scale of the fleet and the scale of procurement, this is a years-long solution to rebound. We need to move faster. And I think we can get boats in the water in 2025, well ahead of the 2026 World Cup.
Is this bill sunsetted in 4 years?
No direct sunsetting, though it's really it's phase one of a multi-step process is how we think of it. So you'll notice, you kind of get into the bill text, this is about purchasing used vessels. And so part of that is these are available now. If you go on the maritime equivalent of Auto Trader, you can actually go look. There are passenger-only vessels for sale today, ranging from $2 to $12 million, several of which I think could be big improvements to our connectivity in Puget Sound, and that they're available today. And so with a simple purchase and a maintenance program, we get these certified, we get them crewed, and then very quickly with a fresh coat of paint, you're off to the races.
So phase one. So phase two to be determined based on the response or the learnings from phase one?
Phase two is about let's start building again in Puget Sound. We have a rich maritime history right here. Part of my work as a legislator in representing a ferry-served community like Kitsap is really learning more about how do we fit in with a broader ecosystem. And the story of Washington State ferries and our challenges with the fleet is actually not unique to Washington. This is happening across the country. We have ferries in 37 different states. The other 36 states are struggling as well. I've yet to meet a maritime worker, a maritime CEO, or anyone in public policy that said, oh yeah, this state, it's old pristine. No. Across the board, these are aging vessels. We don't have enough capacity from a shipbuilding perspective, and we need to build a shipbuilding program again. We need advanced manufacturing again, and that's exactly what the Mosquito Fleet Act can become. In phase two, we begin building passenger only right here in Puget Sound to better connect our communities together. And then we've got customers in 36 other states that are desperate for an economic model. We've led the world in maritime before. It's time to do it again.
So phase one is the used boat.
That's right. Phase
two would be the new boat.
That's right.
Made here.
That's right. Great American jobs, advanced manufacturing careers right here in Washington.
Can you imagine any kind of a sense of competition develop within the state, WSF versus Mosquito Fleet?
I think that's a possibility. I view this as a partnership. WSF is vitally important to Kitsap. It's vitally important across Puget Sound, and it's really a rich part of our history as a state. We're going to celebrate a 74th birthday, June 1st for WSF. That's remarkable. This is an iconic institution. It moves more vehicles across the water than any other ferry network in the world. That is amazing. I want to fully honor that. I think there's an opportunity for partnership here in the sense of, number one, let's recruit more young people into maritime. With a build program and getting boats on the water, we're going to do exactly that, raise awareness and raise opportunity within maritime. And second, WSF has taken it on the chin. Folks like me, we did not provide enough funding for 25 years. WSF is now paying the price. I've met now over 300 crew members on Washington State ferries since I joined the legislature, and I have yet to meet a single crew member that isn't a proud member of the team. Many of them express the challenge and really the disappointment they feel when they feel like they're letting down their neighbors, when they're unable to fulfill a route, or when they're unable to make a sailing happen because of a cancellation. We owe it to our hardworking WSF crew to help relieve some of the pressure on that system. And really, that's what this proposal is about. If we're able to get boats on the water, all of a sudden, I think folks have more patience for the challenges WSF is facing, and we give an iconic institution a moment to catch its breath and get back on its feet. We all want WSF to thrive. And Representative Alex Rammel, a member of the House Transportation Committee, 40th District Representative for the San Juans, is a fervent fighter for WSF. He's doing everything he can to make sure we've got the workforce investments, we've got the investments in maintenance and preservation, and that we're putting WSF on a path to success. And great conversations. We're in alignment. We have to take care of WSF. And in my view, we also got to move really quick to help out neighbors across the Sound, including in the San Juans.
Could the Mosquito Fleet be a farm team for future?
I love that. As a big baseball guy, I think that's exactly right. We want these to be really great jobs and really careers. I think some folks, as they get into passenger only, it's easier to actually start out because you have a low tonnage license. And then as you get your sea time working on the smaller vessel, you realize, hey, I want to get to the major leagues. Washington State Ferries is number one in the world. I want to work for number one. Awesome. You now have the sea hours to actually jump in there and work your way through. There's a progression, and WSF is really the flagship, obviously, of the state.
So money, how much and where's it coming from?
Yeah, so aiming for a $50 million allocation in year one. And that is a big ask when you are looking at the depth of the budget challenges we face. $12 billion across all three budgets, our operating, our capital, and our transportation, with big cost overruns across the board. That is a challenge. I think with a little bit of creative thinking, we're going to make this happen. And I'll give you an example. I'm encouraging colleagues to think carefully about transportation projects in our neck of the woods that we could pause and kind of call time out on for a couple of years. One example is 1 mile from my house. It's a roundabout on Highway 305, about 1 mile from the Bainbridge Ferry Terminal. And our community, it's not our top priority. Our top priority is getting boats on the water and restoring reliable ferry service.
The one by McDonald's?
The one by McDonald's. You had a good memory. I think there's a number of transportation projects, if we think carefully about them, we can revisit that in 5 or 6 years when the state transportation budget has rebounded. But that's, for me, I can say, look, let's put that $27 million as a down payment into passenger-only ferries for Kitsap, for Vashon, for Whidbey, and for the San Juans.
And is that the basic target for round one of the Mosquito Fleet, those communities?
Those communities, that's right. And then part of what we've got to do from kind of a political logic standpoint, to pass this budget, we need 50 votes in the House of Representatives. We're going to need 25 in the Senate, and we're going to need Governor Ferguson's signature in order to put this into play. How do you get to 50 votes? Because you add up the San Juans, you add up Whidbey, Kitsap, Vashon, that's nowhere near 50 legislators, right? So we've got to actually expand the aperture. Too often, ferries are seen as a Puget Sound priority. But actually, when we really break it down, our ferries connect our state. And I've really loved working with Eastern Washington legislators like Representative Tom Dent, who we ran into in the elevator. He's a bison farmer from Moses Lake. It's been a joy getting to know him and learning more about the challenges that he faces as a bison farmer and the challenges his neighbors, many of whom own rangeland, and family farmers, the challenges they face. One example of this, his big target last session was a beef commission. He really wanted a beef commission in order to take care of his neighbors. wonderful. I'm glad, like, you've identified your need. Here's the need we face in Kitsap, and in San Juans, in Whidbey, in Jefferson County, and in Vashon, and in Tacoma. And by kind of understanding each other's needs a little bit better, breaking bread together, talking through it, we realized, look, here's a couple small steps we can take to take better care of each other. And really, that's, I think, the purpose why we organize the state in the first place. We're better together, and we got to remind each other of that. And we've also got to make a clear and compelling case that when we connect neighbors to work, when we connect neighbors to healthcare, to education, and to small business and tourism opportunities, that is of massive economic benefit for our state. It's the right thing to do for our neighbors, and it's the right thing to do from a pure economic development perspective. If we want to develop Washington in the right kind of way, we need to stay connected, and our ferry service helps us to do so.
You've mentioned other communities that people don't think about think about ferries usually, at least in Puget Sound, Grace Harbor and.
Yes.
Any takers? Any interest in that?
We've got interest in that. I was actually just talking to Jim Walsh and Joel McIntyre, representatives from the 19th District, Southwest Washington. They have a thriving maritime potential there. There's a lot of ports and marinas. There's a lot of coastal waterway, and there's a rich tradition. There's a lot of folks that in the family blood is a lot of folks that have spent a lot of time on the water, either as fishermen or as deckhands, folks doing the hard work on the waterways. We've lost a little bit of that edge. We as Americans, we've underinvested since the 1970s. The 19th District would be a wonderful place for us to actually help to build these, as would Grays Harbor. You've got a compelling workforce opportunity there. Folks have to drive 60 miles around. That's a lot of tire dust. That's a lot of highway degradation and 6 ppd that goes into salmon streams. I'm a passionate environmentalist. One of the parts I love about the vision of the Mosquito Fleet Act, we can actually get folks out of their cars safely to their workplace or their tourism destination without having to drive. And all of a sudden, we've got funding left over to actually staff up our buses and staff up other opportunities to move people around.
At the meeting in Clinton with the governor-elect at the time, there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, he was a person from Whidbey, who said, you probably remember him saying for years, for decades, he's been hearing, we got to do something to get, he said, cars off the boats. It's not exactly getting cars off the boats, but to stop the unlimited growth, right? I mean, we can't have much bigger boats, and we don't have enough docks to add all kinds of boats to routes.
Sure.
So talk about the potential for the Mosquito Fleet Act to get people on their feet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from that meeting, I had a chance to meet with Commissioner Jack from South Whidbey. He has a great vision. He wants to connect the Clinton community with the Port of Everett, with the passenger-only ferry. Port authorities on both sides of the water there have actually talked this through. They have a proposal, and then he helps plant the seed that becomes the Mosquito Fleet Act. And so, ideas from all over here. There's just a lot of connectivity that we can bring folks in different communities together, and 1 + 1 = 11 when we're able to make that happen. Because all of a sudden, folks can live on the south end of Whidbey, a more rural, pastoral, beautiful community, and still have access to a great career at the Port of Everett and the surrounding environment there. You made a great point here a few minutes ago about a lot of us in the San Juans wish to connect with the Bellingham community. And WSF, just given kind of the constraints of the knots at which we're sailing and the nature of the ports and the existing infrastructure, it's really not tenable for WSF to sail there. But the Mosquito Fleet Act, really on day one, all of a sudden is able to connect a Friday Harbor and an Orcas Island and a Bellingham. It's able to resume services from Friday Harbor to Sydney. It would be able to bring about a Seattle to Bremerton and Bainbridge and Kingston opportunity so that folks wishing to ride their bike or wishing just to explore on foot or hop a bus to the Olympic National Park can then do so unencumbered by a car or the long wait times that we know we hit during peak demand.
So you have been thinking about a solus boat that could go to Sydney.
Absolutely.
That would be amazing. And by the way, on that subject, I haven't seen this stat for a while, but I looked at it a year or so ago. The route that had the highest percentage of walk-ons was the Sydney route.
Yep.
It's in the 30s, 30% something.
It's high, and all of a sudden you have both Canadians that are wishing to come to the state. That is a much more desirable way to do it than trying to drive through Blaine in your car. We get folks off I-5, And I think the pure economics here are compelling, where the amount of highway degradation when everyone's got to drive to get to where they want to go to support these wonderful communities and these small businesses, there's a way to kind of rethink it. We pay a little bit more upfront maybe with passenger-only ferries, and then the back-end maintenance for these highways and having to expand and maintain 5 or 6 or 7 freeway lanes is it's far lower over the long term.
Is there any expectation that the Mosquito Fleet boats would be use renewable energy or green or anything like any incentives there?
Yes. So on phase 1 here, we're going to find the most cost-effective way to get boats on the water, and so the cleanest diesel we can will probably be the order of the day. The nice part about this is that a lot of the truly clean energy, either the hybrids or straight up electrics, this is not science fiction. This has actually been proven out in Scandinavia. For years, we've actually sailed between islands and different port communities using fully electric. And so with these far, far smaller weight and capacities, there's no big cargo, there's no big semi-trucks fully loaded. There's a fundamental physics challenge with the hybrid electric vessels. You've got to have a ton of horsepower to move that much weight in steel over salt water. It's a much simpler challenge when you're talking about 150 humans all sitting together going to their location.
So you've done a lot of homework. You've talked to 300 WSF employees.
I'd estimate it. That's right. Yeah.
Are you making special trips, or is that just every time you're on the boat, you just make it a point to go talk to the staff?
I make a big point. So every time I'm buying a ticket to go on a route, I'm talking to folks from the ticket booth to folks at the parking lot. And then on board, I try to meet as many folks as I can. And then part of being a legislator, I really want to get down to the engine room, up to the pilot house. And I always want to hear someone's origin story. How did you get here? And what in your life led you to this noble service that you're doing for our state? And from that, you start hearing some common themes where folks, they want to give back. They want to find a meaningful opportunity. They're drawn to some adventure. They're drawn to a great team and camaraderie. And those are things that help guide me as we're thinking about a Mosquito Fleet Act and the next generation of WSF. How do we sustain that energy? And Steve Nevy and his team at WSF have had a very, very difficult job. I think some of the hardest jobs in the state right now are trying to lead WSF. They've done a remarkable job setting a North Star that we are in service to our neighbors. We connect Washington, and we're going to do a very difficult job to the best of our ability. Nothing but admiration for that. As a legislator, I've got to support that. And the best way I can do so, talk to folks doing the work, figure out what they need, and then get them the resources to do their job to the best of the ability.
Great. Lastly, what for people who might be watching this, what can they do? I mean, you're sold on it. What can they do to help you get? Do you need co-sponsors? Do you need a demonstration here? Do you need to get the attention of your colleagues? What can the public do right now, which is February 13, 14? Yeah. The biggest thing right now, we've got to demonstrate strong grassroots support. If this is just seen as a pipe dream of the Kitsap rep, this will go nowhere. Anytime you're asking for more funding during this kind of budget climate, we've got to demonstrate that, hey, this extra allocation really addresses a core need across Puget Sound and across the state. So if you're listening in here, need your help. Writing to your legislators, letting them know, please pass House Bill 1923. Give this a hearing and let's pass this out of committee onto the House floor and get it funded. That's what we need. A letter to the editor, writing into your legislators, getting a group of folks together, writing postcards to legislators on the Transportation Committee. That helps us move the needle far more than you realize. We've got hundreds of bills filed. Why focus on this one, especially when there's a price tag on it? I need your help. The Mosquito Fleet Act, House Bill 1923. Let's get it across the finish line together and fix our ferries.